Hello, and welcome back to another episode of We Are Meant for More. Today, I have the absolute honor and pleasure to introduce you to Monica Pitek-Fugedi. Welcome, Monica.
Hi, it's so good to be here. Thank you for having me.
Oh, I was really excited for this episode. This is such an important topic, and it's so interesting and so needed to be talked about. So, to the audience, a little bit about Monica. I'm going to read right from your bio so that I get this
Mhm.
accurately stated. Monica is a licensed therapist, speaker, owner of Whole Mind Wellness Therapy Practice, and the founder of Anxiety Anecdotes, which is a platform dedicated to providing accessible mental health resources. So, Monica has a specialty in treating anxiety and trauma, and sounds like you combine evidence-based practices to help your clients thrive. So you're also an author
Mhm.
and a public speaker. So
Yeah,
welcome.
thank you. Thank you. So good to be here.
So it sounds like your overall passion and your mission is really to break the stigma around mental illness and to really make sure that resources and the support is available. It surprises me because with all we know about mental illness and whether we've dealt with it ourselves or somebody close to us, there is still a stigma around it. Why do you think that is?
Well, I think that anytime there's anything that might poke us against feeling not perfect, insecurity, then we're afraid of getting found out, so to speak. There's this imposter syndrome that comes up. And
Mhm.
mental illness, mental health is something we all deal with, whether we are diagnosable as a disorder or we just struggle with some anxiety, some stress, whatever. Those are all mental health issues. And the more that we don't talk about it, the more that shame builds around it. And shame lives in silence and it grows in silence. And the only way to destroy shame is to start to speak about it. And so this stigma comes up because I think we don't speak about it. So the more
Mhm.
that we give voice to the normalcy of struggles, then the less shame people who are going through struggles feel.
I think your work is so powerful. And that what you just explained there, people feeling that need to be perfect and being, as you said, found out. There's such a shame, like, oh no, they'll know I'm not perfect. And oftentimes people know already there's something going on. Or um, to the person sitting there right now that's listening and already feels like she's talking to me and they're starting to tune in. What are some of the first steps somebody could take who feels they might be dealing with some sort of a mental health issue?
Well, the first step obviously is recognizing that you have a mental health issue. And if you are listening and thinking, I feel like an imposter sometimes, I feel this and that, it doesn't mean that you're diagnosable. Like I said, it just means that, okay, you're struggling. And that is something to pay attention to. Anytime you're struggling, pay attention to it because it's telling you something. So the first thing to do really is to get curious. Ask yourself, what is this emotion telling me? I always say, whatever emotion it is, and I'll use anxiety as an example, but if this anxiety had a voice, what would it be telling me? And then you will be able to understand the narrative that's going on. It might be saying, well, it's going to tell me that I am completely going to bomb this presentation and everyone's going to judge me. All right, now we can unpack that a little bit more. And there are ways that you can definitely do these things on your own. And as long as you're curious and pause, I always say the power is in the pause, and you can get all the information that you need if you continue to be curious. Now, a mental health therapist is also somebody that you can go to if you want to seek help with the guidance of somebody else, somebody who's trained in the specialty that of the trouble, the challenges that you might be facing. I specialize in anxiety and trauma. So for me, those would be the clients that would come to me. But if you're struggling with an eating disorder, if you're struggling with something else, seeking somebody that can really has some education and background in that field can be so helpful.
Mhm. And is anxiety sometimes at the root of other, say even addictions like alcohol or drugs when people are utilizing those mechanisms to kind of self-soothe or to relieve the anxiety?
Yeah, it typically is. In fact, I might even go a step further and say that trauma is usually at the root of all those, and anxiety is the way it manifests.
Oh.
Because we all have trauma, whether it's little t trauma or big T traumas being those natural disasters and things that we can really put our fingers on, domestic violence, those kinds of things. Little t traumas being little things that kind of take us out of our state of homeostasis for too long or too quickly and puts us into a state of panic that we're not able to um, repair from. And if we're and all of us have trauma, and I think that's important to realize too. Like birth in itself is a trauma when we're born. That's a big thing. And when we're not aware of what the things around us that are causing us to feel unsettled, then anxiety tends to manifest. And then we start telling ourselves a story that, oh, I have to be this way or that way, or I'm not good enough. And it stops us really from living the life that we are meant to live.
And I'm sure with varying degrees of anxiety, impacting life in varying degrees, and then requiring varying degrees of treatment. So, anxiety is one of your specialties.
Mhm.
What would you say to the person who has anxiety? Say, even if it was just a mild, low level anxiety, like even myself, whether it's when it's time to go to sleep, the mind starts racing, or I actually know somebody who has what they would describe as panic attacks. And they just say this like this sudden onset of severe panic and just an anxiety. What
Mhm.
would you suggest to those people that they could even incorporate into their life, or even just some general day-to-day things that can help to kind of keep that at bay?
Sure. So the first thing that I think is really important to know is that anxiety lives in your body first and before you can get cognitive thought to it. A lot of the times we try to think our way out of anxiety, but what happens is we have this little part in our brain called the amygdala, which is called the fire. We call it the fire alarm center of the brain, and it's whenever anything comes in, it goes off if it perceives a threat. And what happens is, I like to enlighten, describe it as a traffic jam. So the amygdala lights up as if there's those cones on the road, and none of the traffic can get through to the prefrontal cortex, which is where your higher order thinking lives, that rational, logical thought, which is why a lot of the times people with anxiety are like, I don't know why this doesn't make any sense. Like, I know better. I don't get it. And then they start to feel like they're crazy because they are not able to do the things that their mind is telling them they should be able to do. And the reason is because the amygdala is not letting that logical thought come through. And that's really important to know because the first thing to do is to know where that anxiety fits in your body. So do a body scan from head to toe, and just from each part of your body, i- uh, think about what part is tense. And whatever part is tense, do some deep diaphragmatic breathing of like inhale through the nose for like 4 seconds, hold it, and then exhale for 5 seconds. This helps to calm the body down. Another real like quick way to help reduce anxiety is to do 3 short breaths in and 1 long exhale out. So it would look like this. And so you would do that a number of times until your body starts to calm. This activates what's called the vagus nerve, which is a whole nother podcast. It's basically, in a nutshell, the longest running nerve from our base of our neck to our gut, and it controls the parasympathetic response, which is our calming response. So there's lots of exercises that you can do to calm the vagus nerve. Now, once you feel like your body is calm enough, now you can do something, an exercise that I really, really like, and I like to call it a court of law. I didn't make it up. I wish I did. I don't know who did, or I would credit that person, but I'm sure people use it all over the place, but I really like it. Anyways, what it is you allow yourself to have whatever anxiety thought it is. So we'll say, for example, again, I'm going to go to this party and everyone is going to judge me because they're not going to like the outfit I have on. That is what your anxiety is telling you. The next step is, can I prove this in a court of law? The answer to that is always going to be no, because the law is theoretically based on logic. And if I cannot prove logically that everyone is going to judge me for my outfit, then I know this must be an irrational thought. So now I go to the next step, which is, can I consider? Can I consider alternatives to my irrational belief that everyone's going to judge me? Well, yes, I can consider that maybe there are going to be people that really like my outfit. Maybe there'll be people that don't even care either way, and maybe nobody will judge me at all. Does that mean you're going to be completely okay and comfortable going into the party? No, it doesn't. What it means is, okay, I do have this thought and this fear, but I can carry it alongside me because what I also have is a consideration that it might not be that way. Because remember, anxiety tells us it's 100% going to be bad all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So those are some real quick tools that can help. And one other thing I'm going to say, because this is a really good one, the amygdala is the only part of your brain that responds to scent. And so you might know when you walk down during the holidays, we'll say, or you're smelling evergreen, it reminds you of Christmas. A smell will bring you back to a memory. So one thing that you can do, and I carry these tiny little essential oil things. They can be the cheap ones. They don't have to be expensive because all you need is the scent. I carry in my purse, in my car, wherever I am, of a scent that I really like. For me, it's orange. And when I'm starting to feel just a little bit heightened, I'll sniff it. During COVID, one of the things I you could do is put it on your mask and just have it there so you could be inhaling the scent that brings peace to you. And what that does is it tells you your amygdala that, wait a minute, this isn't totally a threat because something smells good and I feel good. So it takes it offline just a little bit.
Love that. So that could be any scent and not even necessarily essential oils or something, but something
Mhm.
that brings you pleasure.
Mhm.
I find we
Yeah,
often use memories to a disservice. We remember and recall things that are unsettling, but not necessarily as a way to bring us back to a happy place or a peaceful, comforting place.
right.
Wanted to back up to something that you said about anxiety is first stored in the body. Um, do you mean physically stored in the body? Because when you said doing a body scan and say you kind of just feel like fidgety and somebody's just anxious and sort of say you're feeling it in your hands or do you mean you're physically storing an event of some sort in the body or the anxiety itself can kind of be rid um, with
Yeah.
movement?
So both of those things are true. You are physically storing it in your body. So it might help to give you a little bit of a background of anxiety, how how it started. Anxiety is actually a really good thing. And when we recognize it as something that is trying to protect us, then we can reframe the way that we connect to it. So back in the day when we literally had to be aware of all the wild animals that might come and attack us, what happens is that we see a lion come and our anxiety says, oh my gosh, there's a lion, get out of the way or lie down and freeze, whatever it tells your body to do to stay safe. Cuts off logical thought, your body does what anxiety tells you to do. Present day, if you're in a traffic situation on a highway and somebody cuts you off, anxiety keeps you alive. If you didn't have anxiety, you would just keep going straight. So anxiety goes right to your body and says, oh my gosh, move. Without thought, it's a knee-jerk reaction. And sometimes the the body and the mind act so quickly together that we think our thoughts are the ones that are driving, but it's really our body and our nervous system that is driving our behavior, and it's telling our thoughts what to think. That's why it's so important to know what's happening in our body first. So anxiety sits in what's called the sympathetic nervous system. And basically, that's energy. So it doesn't have to be anxiety. But to your point that you said, moving around absolutely is a great way to diffuse from anxiety because what you need to do is bring that energy and your nervous system into a state that feels that it is a little bit more connected and a little bit more safe. So even if you're just standing there, just do jumping jacks. If you can go out and walk, if you can do yoga is wonderful. Our trauma and a lot of anxiety is held right in our hips. So hip exercises are a great way to release that trauma from your body as well.
Oh, that is fascinating.
Mhm.
So your platform is called Anxiety Anecdotes. What
Yeah.
does that platform look like? What can clients or what would the listeners may find there?
Yeah, so I have a practice called Whole Mind Wellness, but that is for people who want actual therapy. So what
Mhm.
I did was I did kind of an offshoot of that, and I wanted to offer more to people. Basically, my goal is to provide information and therapy to people who can't get to therapy. And I want to go for the masses. So Anxiety Anecdotes is a website that I have created that houses information like workbooks I've created, worksheets I've created, online courses, and membership sites and a newsletter so that you can have access to me in a way that isn't necessarily like the one-on-one therapeutic way. And so it provides a lot of resourcing that is above and beyond the one-on-one therapy that I provide.
Hope everybody's hearing that because that can be life changing for people that are nervous to seek professional help through a provider and maybe work one on one, but it allows them access to kind of comfortably poke around and see what's in there, get some strategies, and also to realize that they're not alone in that
Yeah,
journey.
absolutely. And I'm in the process right now. By the time this airs, it might be up and running of creating a membership site as well for people who want a little bit extra and want to have access like once a month live with me to be in a group to ask questions, to strategize, that sort of thing. That can be really, really useful as well.
Mhm. And that is definitely my goal here with having you here today because I genuinely was really excited for this because you do offer services in varying degrees that are easily accessible to anyone. And you also have a podcast called Anxiety Anecdotes as well.
I do, which is
Mhm.
they're short episodes that just give you there's a little bit of this is a problem, this is a solution kind of a thing, and I always welcome people to write in and ask for a topic to be discussed, and I'm always happy to discuss that as well.
Mhm. This is so great. I'm so thankful. This is so informative, and I know you are going to help so many people with your work.
Thank you.
So where best, and I actually had to laugh at the title here because I always kind of get a feel from the guest what they see as the title for the podcast and how to not suck at life. It's something I try. Please don't let me suck at life. At least not today. um, how did you come up with that?
Well, it's funny because so humor is my natural go-to, and
Yeah, mine too.
I'm a very natural, sarcastic, dry person, and so have spent my life every time like I mess up, I'm always like, "God, I suck at life. Oh, I suck at life," and it's just like something that I do, which is self-deprecating. I don't even know the word deprecating, self-deprecating,
Yes.
but also it's just something I do. And so I realized when I did a keynote address on this as well at a conference that I was at, and I was like, "Gosh, what should I call it?" I'm like, "Oh my gosh, it's perfect. How not to suck at life?" Because this is something that I just always said to myself, and so that's how I came up with the title.
I love it. I love it. And who doesn't want to tune into that episode? Like,
Right? I
I
think we
don't
can
want
all
to.
relate.
Absolutely. And humor is huge. I mean, it really is. I find get a lot of grace out of humor. It carries me through a lot of situations.
For sure, for sure. And it's a great diffuser technique when you're anxious, laughing, because laughing actually ignites that vagus nerve too, which the parasympathetic response. So when you can laugh, that's great.
Does it work too if something isn't actually nothing's happening that's even funny? Can you fool either the subconscious or to
Y-
just start laughing?
Oh, yeah, yeah, I mean, you can actually even just think about something funny, or even if you just do a fake laugh for a little bit, it still
Mhm.
gives the same response, because what's happening is it's not necessarily the memory of something funny, it's the physical act of laughing that activates the vagus nerve. So you don't actually have to think it's funny. I could be laughing at this flower behind me and well, that makes me laugh for real, but it would activate my vagus my vagus nerve. So it would calm me a little bit, because who's upset when they're laughing? If you're laughing, you're not upset at that moment.
Right. So there's an easy fix.
Mhm.
Does
Yeah.
that apply to smiling too? Just smiling and
Smiling is really great. We hold some parasympathetic nerves in our face, our in our cranial nerve in our face, and so smiling really helps a lot. Gargling is really good. Holding an ice cube in your hand or splashing cold water on your face is a great way to calm as well. There's actually a lot of really, really good ways to help calm the nervous system that are super easy, and you can do them even without people noticing. Like if you just tap on your collarbone a little bit, or you might want to do a butterfly tap, you could do that while you're sitting, and people would just think that you're just, I don't know, just sitting there doing something weird, but nobody would really pay too much attention. And that's really good, because that also activates that calming nerve too. So like, yeah,
oh,
right here on your collarbone, like
yeah,
everyone, you can feel your collarbone. So yeah.
yeah. Wow.
And if you do that as you breathe, like as you intentionally breathe in a diaphragmatic way, or those two
Agree.
inhales and then exhale, that is a double whammy kind of to help you calm down.
That's beautiful. Beautiful. Helps the person to at least kind of feel like they're a little more in control of the situation.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Because we have to remember, when we're feeling anxious, often our body feels stuck, and it doesn't want to do anything because it's protecting you. And I mean, even when freezing would be a stuck state, of course. And then when you run, or um, or you fight, whatever, your body is still kind of stuck in that state of anxiety. So it's really important to take yourself out of that stuck point by changing either the scenery or changing something you're doing physically.
So before I share with the listeners where they can find you and all your different resources, is there anything else you feel we haven't touched upon that could help somebody out there right now that's sitting with anxiety or even another form of mental illness
Mhm.
and they're listening?
Yeah, I think the greatest thing that anybody can really understand and absorb is that you are not alone. And every single person is going through something, whether it's been a chronic thing that you have been going through, or something that is a situational thing. Just because it's not talked about doesn't mean that not everybody is suffering from it. And it's
Mhm.
really important to understand that if you can start talking about your story, and that might mean just writing it down. It doesn't mean maybe talking to somebody, maybe you're not ready for that yet, but even writing it down brings it to life. Again, going back to that shame, if there's any shame around it, shame will live in silence, and it feeds off of silence. So the more that you can get that story and those words out, shame is like, well, I don't have any place here anymore. I don't know what to do. And then we can kind of get rid of it. And so it is really important to know that none of us are alone, and it's okay to not be okay. It really is. And the biggest thing I like people to know is that every story has its meaning. Everything that you do has a reason for it. You're not crazy, you're not irrational. You're even though your actions might say otherwise, there is a reason that you do the things that you do. And the reason usually stems from a very early part of your life. And this is where I say stay curious, keep going
Mhm.
back in time of, I'm feeling this way. What is this saying about me? I wonder when the last time I felt this was, when the last time I felt, and when the last time, and what was going on. You might come to a conclusion that, oh, I remember feeling this way when I was 5 years old, when my dad, told me I couldn't play baseball or something.
Mhm.
And then that becomes the reason that you act the way that you do, remembering that the way that we are raised and the way that we felt seen, safe, and connected growing up and the way that we felt loved, that's what we carry into adulthood. And we keep that story going until we break the cycle. And the only way that we can break the cycle is to really do some deep diving and personal growth.
Hmm. And that takes some commitment. And I love the word you used, curious. It doesn't feel threatening. It doesn't feel scary. It feels
Hmm.
manageable. Just being
Yeah.
curious and noticing what you're feeling.
Yeah. Noticing what you're noticing. It's actually called the observing self. Noticing
Mhm.
what you're noticing about what's happening. And when you're curious, you're not accusatory, you're not defensive. You're just, huh, I wonder what that's about.
Speaking of noticing, what would you say to the person? What if you're noticing this in a loved one or you're noticing it in a friend and you're observing some things that you feel are either a concerning or that you're just plain worried about them, that they're not mentally well? How do you
Yeah.
approach that?
The first thing I think that is important to understand is that everybody needs to feel seen and safe first. Without that element, you will get no information from them. So the first thing is to first say, "Hey, I really care about you a lot." And things like I don't know what I would do without this relationship that we have. You brought so much to my life. I have noticed a little bit of change though recently, and you seem a little bit withdrawn, and I'm wondering if there's something going on that maybe you want to talk about, even if not to me. I just want to let you know that I'm a safe space, and I just want to let you know that I notice this, and it's only because I care about you and I love you so much. Like the sandwich technique, right? The good,
Mhm.
what you want to say, the good again. Because if I always say, like in education, like no education, no learning happens without a relationship. And the same thing happens with interpersonal relationships too. No
Mhm.
growth in your relationship or personally is going to happen until I feel like you care about me.
Absolutely, especially something like your mental health, where it's so personal and it could easily be taken as an attack with the wrong
Mm,
delivery.
yeah.
So I appreciate that answer. That's very helpful.
Thank you. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, thank you so much for all this amazing information. As we briefly touched upon, you have actually, I don't even think we touched upon the newsletter. You have a
Mhm.
newsletter as well.
I do. I have a newsletter and a blog on anxiety anecdotes. The newsletter is just short bullet points because I like to treat people like I like to be treated, and I don't like to read long paragraphs. So
Mhm.
I'm a very bottom line kind of a girl. So the newsletter is like, hey, this is a great little technique for anxiety. This is an online course coming up that you might be able to get a discount on. This is a new membership site, whatever it is, so that you can just be in the know.
Mhm. So, where is the best place for people to find you and to sign up for that newsletter and to be in the know with what you have to offer?
Yeah, so you'll just want to go to anxietyanecdotes.com and you will see a place to sign up for the newsletter there as well as some other resources that you can have.
Wonderful. And all that information will be in the show notes when for people that are listening to the podcast. You'll see that in the show notes. But nice for them to have that here so people can find it
Yeah.
right away. Oh, Monica, thank you so much. I really, really appreciate you being here and discussing such an important topic.
Thank you so much. I'm always so happy to spread the word about mental health. And so I'm really honored that you had me on this podcast. I really enjoyed speaking with you
My
and your
pleasure.
listeners.
Yes, and to the listeners, anybody that you feel could benefit from this episode, please share so you can help Monica to get the word out for resources, support, and to get rid of the stigma around mental health issues because you're not alone. You're not alone. And thank you to everybody for being here. Thank you, Monica, and we will see you next time.
Thank you.
Thank you.